The New Orleans Saints traveled to Seattle looking for their first win of the season. Instead, they were knocked out early in the game as they found themselves trailing 21 to nothing in the first quarter on the way to a 44-13 defeat. Nothing about the Saints' play or coaching or anything else worked, so we'll just have to break down the beatdown in Seattle by the Seahawks. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. And unfortunately, there's nothing to talk about but a beatdown. It was ugly watching it. Last night, the early PFF grades were out. You could imagine they weren't spectacular. They're under review right now and have been most of the morning as I'm filming this on Monday morning. I haven't got an updated version, but unless somebody reviewing this decides to grade it on a huge curve, I don't expect much improvement. Backed up by I've already started looking at film in the all 22, and it is just as painful to watch on film as it was watching live yesterday on my back porch. But there's no getting around it that you started off basically on the premise, or I did, maybe not necessarily you, hopefully we, let's see some improvement. Okay. The same old problems that keep rearing its head. Let's go ahead and knock those out on the road. That would be a huge step and is going to happen to give you a shot. Total fail on so many levels, it's not even funny. I mean, you had issues with penalties yet again. And I quit keeping track after the first half. But as of the first half, and I think we had a total of 11 accepted penalties on the day, but as of the first half, 10 flags thrown against us. 8 were accepted, 2 were declined. And it's not only still stacking up the pre-snap, can't line up correct, can't trying to go tempo and go fast, can't snap the ball where everybody's set and you're not getting dinged with an illegal shift. But for the love of God, when you finally in 3 weeks get off the field on a 3rd and 7, you can't have a dead ball personal foul to give them the ball back. This just goes on and on and on. And look, the neighbors probably thought I was crazy because I was dropping a lot of F bombs, and we weren't even 5 minutes into the game at this point when this stuff started happening. Pre-snap crap on our first drive, and then of course Brazil's BS. When you had a chance to hold them to a field goal, you give up a touchdown like that just out of something dumb. And most of these penalties are doing dumb things by supposedly smart football savvy players. Well, I need to start seeing that. This is getting unbearable to watch. You needed to improve your blocking, specifically your run blocking. At times, the pass blocking seemed to be pretty good. Now, I know, hey, we only had 2 starting offensive linemen available for this game, but I tell you what, I just am struggling to keep using injuries as an excuse. When on the flip side, you watched a team yesterday that had guys in their secondary replacing their top corner and by far their best safety and one of their best defenders overall, and Julian and Witherspoon is the corner and Love is the safety, with guys that were on the practice squad last year. They were balling. I, I'm getting a little fed up excuse with this. It's who you got is who you got. I understand that, and you get what you get from them, but it needs to be more. And it's still some of the same problems in blocking going on needs to stop. Pass blocking is iffy. You get pretty good sometimes, sometimes not so much. And that appears to have been a repeat of yesterday. But the run blocking, once again, 3rd game in a row to get, and I think we averaged 3 yards a carry yesterday. To get to your average, your ball carriers have to gain more per average after contact than before. 2nd week in a row, we didn't even get to 1 yard average before contact. Like I said, I don't expect those preliminary PFF grades I saw last night to get a whole lot better up front. You're still on top of that with these pre-snap penalties, mostly the offensive line, but not all. Some of that is on some of the stuff the receivers are doing. But this combination is you're just setting yourself up for failure after failure after failure. And that combination, if we can't clean up penalties and we can't get our blocking any better or straightened out, or change the scheme or make some whatever that we have to do to help those guys. You run into a team on the road in a place like that, and you can't get off fast. Yet another slow start. You move the ball a little bit down the field on that first drive, and then you just stalled. Being aggressive, trying to go for it on fourth down. Hey, I don't have a problem with that. But an opportunity for a big play presented itself against a defense that does not give up a lot of big plays. You got to hit that. And I understand it was Rattler was rolling out and scrambling, but at this point in the season, if you want to have a season, if you want to go in and be able to compete in games like this, the limited times, because it will be limited, we're not good enough, sorry to say, on either side of the ball to present multiple opportunities for big plays. So when they show up, you got to be nails. You have to, some kind of way. You've got to figure out a way when you get that. You had Alvin open. If you get him the ball some kind of way where he can catch it. And I'm haven't broken down the play. I've looked at it a little bit on all 22, but at this point, it doesn't matter. It's not about blame. It could be, but to me, it's not. What it is about is find a way to make the play. Find a way to do some stuff that will get you on a fast start. And maybe for once, you can play a game in the first half where you're not constantly, and I mean constantly, under the gun, trying to recover, scramble back, get yourself back in the game. You managed to do it twice at home. You're not going to do it very often in the road. You're certainly not going to do it at a place like Seattle or hello, Buffalo, where we're heading to next week. Defensively, I'm getting fed up with the can't bring pressure or cover. And our cover grade was spectacular week one against Arizona with Blackman on the field. And I get it. He's done for the year. That was a big loss. But again, that is the prime example of what Julian Love is to Seattle. They overcame it, no problem. You got to find a way. And you got to make some big plays on defense. You've got to bring pressure. Now, Catherine Terrell popped a tweet after yesterday's game. Darnold only had 5 plays, and she accredited this to an ESPN stat. Only had 5 plays where he was pressured. 5. So you can't cover, you can't get to the quarterback. Chase Young will probably come in and help that out. But again, not available. Somebody else has got to figure out a way to do it. 7 missed tackles. Now, we were decent stopping the run. They only had a half-yard average before contact, 2.1 average after contact, 7 missed tackles involved in that. Once again, another watching the game and then go and look at some of the plays that kind of stuck out of my head. Um, this wasn't so much where you were missing the opportunity to tackle because you were taking bad angles, although there were some of that. But this was more of they were just moving piles. And it happened several times. Tight ends on a catching a pass. Borner caught one. It's like they moved the pile 6 yards. You didn't tackle well with the 7 misses. You physically got pushed around, and this was both sides of the ball, but it was really evident on defense where, by comparison, they were delivering blows, aggressively delivering blows. We seem to be almost passively taking them. Again, both sides of the ball. Seattle's, especially Mike McDonald coach Seattle, that's going to be a physical team, and it just seemed like that no pressure issue and no coverage and no ability to make tackles or stop extra yards after the catch. It's, I don't want to say a lack of physicality. I hate to say stuff like that, but you didn't bring enough to compete with what they were bringing. And it costs you, and that can't happen. As far as stopping the run, I don't know if Seattle was making a conscious effort to run the ball. It almost seemed like they know, well, they can't pressure us, they can't cover us. I did watch several times the replay of the first touchdown pass, and oh my God, how did we let Jackson. I'm gonna call him number 11. I struggle with saying his name. Uh, How we let him get so wide open, and it was a massive coverage fail with some boneheaded mistake by by a player you wouldn't expect to see it from. Uh, it's a struggle to watch this, and then when you look at what it leads to, 7 consecutive offensive possessions they had, 4 touchdowns, 3 field goals. Technically, they scored on 8 consecutive possessions if you throw in the punt return for a touchdown. This is all stuff we've talked about the last 2 weeks. It wasn't as egregious as this was. Kind of ended it on the punt return for a touchdown because despite not even getting better, but more than likely, when you break down the numbers, a regression on all the same old problems we were talking about after the first 2 weeks. Now you open the door for a whole set of new problems that you're going to have to deal with, starting with special teams. So we're going to segue to that. So the new problems, the new issues, special team disaster, complete disaster, spectacular fail. Give a punt return for a TD. You had a long kickoff return that sets up a gimme layup of a touchdown drive. They blocked a punt, get points off of that. You miss a field goal, which, by the way, Groupies now miss one in every game. 3 games, 3 misses. He only had 4 all of last year. I'm sitting here thinking back to the comment I made in the Thank You JT Gray video when we released him, saying, look, I understand their need to have players that can play special teams, do other things in the offense, especially younger ones that they probably going to have to keep around on the roster during this rebuild because you need a fair amount of players under rookie deals. All that stuff made sense. But the thought I remember the most is accepting of it until we can't cover putter kicks, and then I'm going to get pissed about the cutting of JT Gray. Yeah, I don't think as I'm watching Horton return that punt return that fatal comment didn't come back to bite me. And I get it. I understand. But this is the sort of thing where you feel like if Gray's on that field, not only his own ability, but his being as a special team captain and team leader, somebody that's going to jump in and be able to handle stuff like this. We don't have that right now. It's the double-edged sword, trying to get younger and trying to keep your roster as deep as possible to help because of injuries. But as it turns out, that doesn't seem to help either. So almost like any roster, and we're going to talk about this a little more in a minute, any roster decisions we make is a double-edged sword that we just keep cutting ourselves to ribbons with, which is a nice segue into kind of some coaching and possible front office decisions because there's just a whole lot of crap that don't make sense that's going on right now. But let's start with Kellen Moore kicking field goals down multiple scores in the first half. Come on, man. I mean, you're just to me sending the message right there. We're punting the game. We're trying to get out of here, not making it look as bad as it actually is. And I think you make it worse. Now, I can only speak for how I felt about the situation. So I'm operating under the assumption most people would feel the same way. But I don't know. Let me know your opinion about down in the comments below about this. But I can almost stomach. And this whole thing, well, the offense had a good drive. I wanted to make sure they get points thing as a reward for what? You're not closing the gap any. It's still a monumental task. I'd like to reward the offense with the extra chance on 4th down. Go pick up the first down or get the ball in the end zone. Can you destroy their confidence any more just by yanking them off the field and saying, hey, we're going to put Groupie out there and hope he makes one? I, I don't understand the decision making, but if we got shut out 44-0 because on all those field goal attempts, the 2 he made and the 1 he missed, if 3 times we were still trying to pick up first down or put points on the board, getting the ball in the end zone, I could live with that. A lot more than I could live with. It just felt like we were waving the white flag very early in that game. And it just doesn't sit well with me. And this is after being overly aggressive on fourth down. I don't necessarily have a problem with what you were doing in the first half. You were expecting your defense to show up and help you out, which they didn't. But after that fiasco happened on their first drive, you're coming down deep in your own territory on a fourth and one. You're going to try to tush push it. Come on. At best, with our five starters fully healthy, I don't know if we have the ability to tush push for a yard. I'm not going with that right there in that situation. You know, if you want to pull this fourth and one in their red zone because you're down by a bunch of scores, like I was just saying, instead of kicking a field goal, hey, no problem. I'd probably still prefer you run a different play, but okay, but not there. Thank God Simpkins jumped early and we got the 5 yard penalty, right? Uh, Unfortunately, we couldn't cover a punt. They end up housing it 95 yards on the return anyway. I, it's just head scratching that I just really don't understand. I also have an issue about Tyler Shuck coming in the game. Now, before everybody starts banging on the keyboard, hear me out on this one. I have a problem with you bringing him in the backups and then trying to run the offense. Okay. If you wanted to bring Shuck in, which I wouldn't have had a problem with because the game was out of control and you've been sending signals for quarters that, hey, we're out of this thing. If you wanted to send him out there to run the offense, send him out with the first team. Whoever we had out there to start the game, give him a legitimate drive if you're going to try to run the offense with that. Don't give me this. He's going to go in with other backups. Then we're going to try to get him to throw the ball. And let's see how hard we can get him hit if that was your goal. Because I'd prefer you just let him hand it off 3 times if you're just trying to run the clock out, kill the game instead of 2 incompletions that stop the clock and prolong everybody's agony but Seattle's. If you wanted to run the offense, give him the offense the best you could to run it with, not with what you did. And if you just wanted to get him out there for a little live action, a little contact, like I said, let him hand it off 3 times or let him have one design quarterback run. Let's just see what happens. I don't think any of that would have worked because at that point, Seattle was just basically, they may have turned the dogs off a little bit on offense, but on defense, they were not interested in giving up any more yards or points, and they were playing like it. So I don't understand how putting your rookie in a hopeless situation with one shoe off did you any good whatsoever. So in the future, if this presents itself in Buffalo, which it very well can, either let him go with the ones or don't freaking worry about it until you get into practice heading back into the Giants game at home. But these are the type of things that when you just pull that out, when you think of all the decisions that were being made throughout this game, going, what are we doing and what are you thinking about on the sideline? Uh, Nothing, nothing in that whole scenario about how we started handling it down 21 points to putting Chuck in the game with no real relevance whatsoever with the rest of the backups. I don't get it. The last thing that it seemed from the jump, we had players just not ready to play. Both sides of the ball. And I'm not saying it's everybody. Maybe it was a little contagious as the game went on. But again, simple mistakes or not having your head in the game, it started popping up early and just progressively got worse. And the thing is, in the atmosphere you were in, it looked like we were totally unprepared. We were supposed to have been prepared. They were supposed to have worked hard about the environment they were going in. And it's not like we don't have players on the roster who played there before, know exactly what it was. But it was like, yeah, everything caught us off guard that was going on. And that team and that crowd together feed on your mistakes being constantly made where they can just keep revving it up and revving it up and revving it up. And the more they revved it up, the more we crumbled. There's just no better word for it. I I can't understand how some of our veterans fell victim to that and some guys that had been there before. The younger players, I get it. And then when they're looking around and watching some of the stuff that was going on out there, it's just not a good situation all the way around. And I'm sorry, that goes back basically tied into coaching. It's like you got to get them ready to play. The veterans going to have to get themselves ready to play, and everybody's going to probably have to drag some of those younger players along. Some of them look like they held up well, surprisingly. Most, mm, not so much. And as far as players not being ready to play, this is where I'm wondering, and this bothers me. We'll kind of wrap it up here, but this bothers the hell out of me. If a player is injured, if he can play in the game, he should play in the game. If he can't play in the game, dressing him out, sticking him on the sideline, and putting the emergency label on him. Oh, in case we get some injuries, he'll have to go in. What freaking good is that doing? Especially since you already have a depleted roster right now. And we did this crap last year under a different coaching staff. And this is what scares me, that it's not coming from the people who should be making the decisions, the coaching staff and the training staff, and it's coming from somewhere else. So we had multiple occasions last year where, and in games we were struggling with the offensive line and looking at, I can think of Saldivari, I believe, one time, and Landon Young once. Why aren't they in the game playing? Why are we watching this go on? These guys getting beat constantly. You find out, oh, well, they're the emergency guys. I'm like, well, getting your ass kicked on the offensive line and not being able to move the ball and score points, that's not an emergency. So it's just basically in case of injury. That shit's got to stop. If they can play, they play. If they can't play, get coaches, get players ready all week who can come in and play and possibly try to help you. And especially if they're going to have to see the field in a hostile environment like a Seattle. Oh, by the way, like a Buffalo. If this is coming from somewhere else, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying we've seen it definitely 2 years in a row, and the only thing consistent is what's up there, not what's on the field coaching and the training staff that's dealing with said injuries. I've got a huge issue and problem with that, and it's scaring the crap out of me. So to wrap it up, I feel like there was probably more, but like I said, this is just notes I was writing mostly through the first half, because in the second half, I'm like, what's the freaking point? See first half on most of this crap. Preliminary PFF grades that came out and their first evaluation of the games, and this will all crystallize more. I will try to do a deeper dive in the film and try to see if I can see more positive, maybe. Um, but for right now, the initial reaction was so bad because you really hope this is a one-off. Oh, it just happened once. They'll get through this and move on. But the fact that they struggle fixing, and this nothing new for the Saints organization over the last few seasons. This the known problems they keep doing over and over. Now you're adding additional problems you thought you kind of had handled, or you were at least in pretty good shape on going. You know, we knew, or I knew, or I think everybody knew all along that going into game three after playing two at home, where it was going to be a relatively soft landing, some of these mistakes you were making at home, as opposed to a place like Seattle on the road where it's just going to smack you right in the face every time you do it. And I mean, they knocked us out. They beat us down and knocked us out. Be clear on what I'm about ready to say. They deserve the win. That's a very good team, and they played very good yesterday. But there's a difference. I had the score um, 34-13 or 31-13, somewhere in there, figuring, we could hang around a little bit, but sooner or later, the combination of being on the road, that team, especially if they're playing well, they'll grind us down and they'll beat us. And then they knock that ball right out the park in the first 10 minutes of the game. But you've put now 3 games of tape out there. You regressed pretty much everywhere in every phase of the game, and it's starting to be a little concerning going, we may have some deeper problems with players with coaching, certainly with preparation, I think that's a no-brainer. Dealing road games to home games, um, I don't know. I really don't know. It's kind of mind-boggling and it's very scary because this is starting. You were getting a little bit of narrative in the national media and locally. And look, I was kind of buying into what you saw at home, going, look, it is kind of smoke and mirrors, but there's some really good stuff in there that if you can keep doing and get better doing it, okay. Even if we go into Seattle and lose by 14, 21 points, something like that, you realize the circumstances you were under and going, just keep getting better. That somewhere down, you can keep that everything trending up, which you do well, and then while fixing the problems of the stuff that you don't, the whole you are allowed to get better as the season progresses. Well, that's how you're going to have to do it. Not in this. Not in this. This is supporting the Saints are in over their heads, worst roster in the NFL, all that stuff we were hearing prior to week one. Going, well, yeah, to what you did yesterday, players and coaching, you kind of backing up a whole lot of that kind of talk. And that's the problem when you're in a rebuild and you were hoping, and this is what I'm saying, this is what I thought maybe the rebuild based on the first 2 weeks and the suggestion of getting better and better and better every week. Maybe you could limit this to a 1 year deal in 2026. You can get yourself in a position where you can realistically start talking about, okay, what can we accomplish? You stack up another game like this on the road in Buffalo, and odds are that you will, based on which you showed up with yesterday. Now you're having a whole different conversation about the rest of the season. Whole different conversation about your roster and how you're going to handle it. All but confirming you're going to try to be sellers come the trade deadline and looking in the future going, man, we might have to go through this again in 2026. I know it sounds like I'm pushing the panic button. Not yet, but I know where it is, and it's within arm's length away of hitting it. You can't do this again. So puts us on. We were always in a precarious situation this season. You know, you're on the ledge. Now you kind of have 1 foot off and hoping nobody pushes you. That's just the way I see. As bad as everything came apart, because I wasn't expecting it to be great. I was hoping it would be good. I just wanted the improvement. I'm going to go look back and look at the film, and I'll recheck PFF and next gen stats and see if there's anything in there that goes, okay, there's something to hang your hat on. But right now, I'm not very hopeful that it even exists. We'll see. Could be a long week. So first time here, please hit the like, the share, the subscribe, drop some comments down there below. I'll have a pinned one basically, asking, hey, is this a one-off or do we have bigger issues? I feel like I know what everybody's going to say, but hey, you may have found the positive things in this game that I missed, and I will be searching for them for the next video. Hopefully I can bring something. I'm not guaranteeing you that I can. I will give it my humble best. So we'll be back Wednesday-ish. See where we're sitting there and what it's looking like heading into Buffalo. Till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.